People-pleasing isn't a personality trait. It's a survival response your nervous system built when you were a child, and saying no felt genuinely dangerous. The kindest, most giving people you know might be carrying a wound they've never named. By the end, you'll understand exactly why. Think about the last time someone asked you to do something you really didn't want to do. Did you say no? Or did you smile, say sure, and spend the next hour quietly resenting yourself? If saying no has ever felt genuinely dangerous, like something bad would actually happen, that feeling isn't a quirk, it's a clue, and it points to something your nervous system learned a long time ago. Here's what most people never get told. This pattern has a name. It's called the Fawn response, and it's one of 4 ways your body learns to survive threat. Not a character flaw, not weakness. A nervous system strategy built in childhood, running on autopilot right now. The Fawn response was named by therapist Pete Walker, who wrote about it in his 2013 book on complex PTSD after working for decades with trauma survivors. Walker identified that alongside fight, flight, and freeze, many people learn a 4th survival response, fawn. You appease, you accommodate, you make yourself agreeable, useful, pleasant, whatever's needed to lower the threat in the room. And critically, this isn't a conscious choice. It's your nervous system running an automatic program, one it built for very good reason.
Picture a small kid learning to read the room, watching a parent figure for the first signs of anger, figuring out which version of themselves gets love and which version causes trouble. That child isn't being manipulative, they're being smart under pressure. Their developing brain is doing something genuinely adaptive. The problem is that the brain encodes this as the strategy, not just for that house, that parent, that year, for relationships, for life. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is how common this is. The CDC's Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, one of the largest public health research projects ever conducted, found that roughly 64% of U.S. adults reported at least one adverse childhood experience. And trauma researchers have linked high ACE scores directly to dysregulated stress responses in adulthood. The kind where your nervous system stays permanently on guard, scanning for disapproval, for conflict, for any sign you're not okay. Pete Walker wrote that the Fawn type has so thoroughly abandoned themselves that they don't even realize they have needs of their own. I want you to sit with that for a second. Not suppressing needs, not choosing to ignore them, just not knowing they exist. Because that's what a deeply conditioned fawn response can actually do to your sense of self.
Here's the part that stops most people mid-scroll. People pleasers aren't actually trying to be kind, they're trying to feel safe. And those two things, kindness and fear, can look completely identical from the outside. That's what makes this so hard to see in yourself. But here's what most people get wrong. They think people-pleasing is the behavior problem, and that if they could just learn to say no more, they'd be fixed. But the fawn response isn't a behavior problem, it's a nervous system problem, and that's a completely different thing. The saying yes when you mean no, the over-apologizing, the shrinking, that's just the surface layer. Underneath it, your body is in a state of threat, and no amount of boundary-setting scripts will touch that until you address what's actually driving it. Think about what happens in your body when someone seems disappointed in you, or when you need to disagree with someone and you can feel the tension rising. For most people pleasers, that moment triggers a genuine physiological response. Heart rate shifts, stomach tightens, a part of you goes, "Danger! Back off! Fix this!" Not because the situation is actually dangerous, but because your nervous system still thinks it's living in the environment it grew up in. It's never been updated. It's still running the same protective code.
So, how do you know if this is you? There are patterns that show up consistently. You apologize reflexively, even when you did nothing wrong. You feel responsible for other people's emotions. You can't identify what you actually want until you know what the other person wants first. You feel physical anxiety at the idea of someone being upset with you. And you often leave interactions feeling drained, like you performed rather than actually connected. Bessel van der Kolk, one of the world's leading trauma researchers, wrote in his landmark 2014 book that the body keeps the score. What he meant was this: trauma isn't stored as a memory, it's stored as a body state. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between a memory of danger and actual present danger. It just reacts. And for people with a deeply conditioned fawn response, everyday social situations can feel, in the body, like survival situations. And this is the real twist. The very response that protected you as a child is the thing preventing you from being truly known as an adult, because you can't be genuinely close to someone if you're constantly editing yourself around them.
So what do you actually do with this? Because understanding it intellectually is one thing, but your nervous system doesn't care about intellectual understanding. It responds to experience. And that means the path forward isn't reading more self-help books or telling yourself to just be more confident. The path is slowly, carefully teaching your body that it's safe to take up space. There are 3 things that genuinely help. First, notice. Before you can change anything, catch the moment the fawn response activates. When you feel that pull to agree, to apologize, to shrink, just pause. Notice it without judging it. Second, name it internally. My body thinks there's a threat here. There isn't actually a threat. That act of labeling creates a gap between the feeling and the behavior. UCLA researchers call this affect labeling, and studies show it actually reduces amygdala activation. Third, micro-boundary practice, not grand confrontations. Start impossibly small. Choose a preference at a restaurant. Say, actually, I think, in a low-stakes conversation. Each small act is data your nervous system collects, evidence you survived, that nothing bad happened.
This isn't a fast process, and naming that matters. Nervous system healing happens in layers, not leaps. Week 1, you start noticing the pattern. Month 1, you start naming it in real time. Month 3, you're building micro-evidence that self-expression is safe. And slowly, with enough repetition, your baseline shifts. The threat response doesn't disappear, but it becomes quieter, and you get just enough space to choose differently. The goal isn't to become someone who never considers other people. Empathy is beautiful. Sensitivity is a gift. The goal is to move from fear-based giving to choice-based giving. To be someone who helps because they genuinely want to, not because their nervous system is telling them that saying no is dangerous. That shift, from fear to choice, is what reclaiming your identity actually looks like. Here's the reframe I want you to carry. At the start, we said people-pleasing isn't a personality trait, and now you know what it actually is. It's evidence that you were smart enough to adapt, that you found a way through. The wound isn't that you learned to fawn, the wound is that you had to. And the healing isn't about becoming harder or more selfish, it's about learning, slowly, that you're safe enough now to be yourself.
If this hit close to home, the video on why you attract emotionally unavailable people goes deeper into how childhood wounds shape adult relationship patterns. And if this channel is new to you, subscribe. There's a lot more of this kind of thing here.